This is a bend. This is a bend. This is a big bend. This is a small bend. As a blacksmith, I make a lot of bends. If you've done some blacksmithing, you're probably familiar with the frustration involved with trying to get the bend correct, or trying to get the same bend over and over and over again. Quite often, the more time you spend trying to get it just right, the worse it ends up looking. To resolve this issue, I'm going to be making a bending jig. The way a typical bending jig works is you have a smaller pin and a larger pin. When you insert your piece, it pinches against the smaller pin, allowing you to bend it around the larger pin. Not only does this design work extremely well, but it's also so simple. There's no moving parts in it to go bad. However, there's a major downside to this particular design, and that is that it only makes one size bend. So this begs the question, is there a way that we can make one that can be adjusted to fit a different size bend depending on your need? I saw a design where somebody took, and for their larger pin, they used a series of sockets so that if they needed to change to a different size bend, they could simply stick in a different size socket. And this gave them a whole lot of different options that were very quick and easy to exchange. The first step was to go pick up a pack of inexpensive sockets that I could use for this project. Now I've seen where somebody drilled a series of holes and had the smaller pin be movable. So they could just pick up the pin and drop it in the next hole in order to adjust the amount of room between the small pin and the large pin. And that would probably work pretty well. It would require a fair amount of precise drilling, but it can be done. However, I have a different idea that we can try that may be able to do it much easier without any drilling. I went to the store and picked up an inexpensive set of sockets for around 20 bucks. This should give me a fair amount of different sizes that I can work with. So while bending the piece into shape, I fattened the 1/2 inch stock too much in one dimension, so the socket no longer fits onto it. I'm going to try and fix this by heating up my piece, sticking in the vise, and then hammering the socket on, and hopefully that'll make it fit. There's also the distinct possibility that in doing this, I will in fact make the socket stick rather permanently onto the piece of metal, but we'll see what happens. So in sticking in the water, it caused it to cool very rapidly, so the 1/2 inch piece shrunk away from the socket and I was able to get it off. And in fact, it fell off on its own. This next part that I'm working on is the smaller pin that the piece will push against. It said previously that I had an idea on how I could do this without any drilling. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to make a collar, and I'm going to make my pin be an extension of that collar. So first I'm going and I'm drawing out the collar to be roughly a rectangle, and then I will wrap it around the body of the jig. and it will have a little bit of play, which will let me move it back and forth and adjust it, but as soon as pressure is put against it, due to the length of the arm, it will wedge it in place. And so while it will have a little play by necessity, it should stay in place whenever I try and bend something. I spent a little time going and adjusting it so that everything fit tight and was all square to each other. And I found that it worked better if I bent my small pen a little bit, as it tended to come up at an angle. And that created this weird V. So giving that a slight bend made it just mesh a little better.